everyone, it's Hairyfrankfurt, and today we're going to be talking about legalizing every single drug on the planet. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe and leave a comment down below what you think about the topic of legalization when it comes to drugs. Now, I know this is a really controversial topic. I really truly believe that every single drug on the planet should be legalized with some restrictions put in place for the really hardcore stuff. So for crystal meth or for heroin, I would suggest certain licenses being required. We know that the war on drugs is not working. We know for a fact that we are spending plenty of money on imprisoning people for drug-related crimes. I just did a quick Google search and I will read it out to you. Okay, so there was a report done that showed alcohol caused 5,554 deaths and 157,132 hospitalizations in 2010. This was in July 2014 the report was done, and it's called the Australia's Daily Alcohol Toll. Every day, 15 deaths and 430 hospitalizations Australia-wide. Now remember, this is a legal drug. Let's have a look at how much taxes are placed on alcohol. Now I'm just looking at a report done by news.com.au. Australia is the third most expensive country to buy a pint of beer, 37% higher than in the US. According to Australian Hotels Association, around 20% of the cost of beer at the pub is made up of tax. Now let's have a look at some spirits, shall we? Because those are my drink of choice. 750 milliliters of Jim Beam at an online liquor store in Colorado is $17.99 US, which is $21.05 Australian. And if you compare that with 700 mils of Jim Beam at a Dan Murphy's online store, it is $32.95 Australian. Most of that is taxes. So obviously you can see that even though alcohol kills plenty of people, it's legal and it makes us a shitload of money. So looking at druginfo.adf.org.au, looking at national statistics for alcohol, it is the most widely used drug in all of Australia. 86.2% of Australians aged 14 and over have drunk alcohol one or more times in their lives. 37.3% of Australians aged 14 years and over consume alcohol on a weekly basis. Now we're looking at young people. Young Australians aged 14 to 24 have their first full serve of alcohol at 15.7 years on average. So before they turn 16, on average, people having their first serve of alcohol. So the national statistic for cannabis is that 34.8% of Australians aged 14 and over have used cannabis one or more times in their life. 10.2% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used cannabis in the previous 12 months. So that is 10.2 of our entire population that we could be selling cannabis to legally at a taxed rate and making sure that whatever goes into the cannabis is legal and safe and healthy. For those of you who are saying, but there's already legal highs that you can purchase, it is not guaranteed that they are safe or healthy or good for you. And I don't know what the taxation is on those, but I do know that most of the time it is an experimental chemical. So what they do is they take the original, which would be the cannabinoid in cannabis, and they change it around. The reason they do this is because it isn't illegal until the law can find out what that chemical is and then criminalize it. So just because you can buy it in a shop and it calls itself whatever the fuck it calls itself does not mean it is safe and does not mean it is necessarily legal. 8.1% of Australians aged 14 and over have used cocaine one or more times in their life. 2.1% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used cocaine in the past 12 months. Remember, cocaine is already very expensive. However, a lot of the time it is cut with nasty chemicals that you do not want to be putting in your body, whether that be talcum powder, which is really bad for you, or God knows what. You really have no idea what you're purchasing when you buy a gram, which is generally several $100s of cocaine on the streets. We could be lowering the amount of hospitalizations from cocaine by making it actual cocaine legally distributed and ensuring that all of the ingredients are of a certain quality and standard, and then we can be profiting on the taxes that we put on that. Because cocaine is an elite drug, so to speak, in that it is fucking expensive. Not that I know. 10.9% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used ecstasy one or more times in their life. 2.5% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used ecstasy in the past 12 months. Again, ecstasy, one of those drugs, you want the MDMA, but in order to get that as easy as you can, you ask the guy with the bathtub to mix it with God knows what, dishwashing detergent. You literally have no idea what is in a pill of ecstasy. You pay about 20 bucks, which is far cheaper than alcohol at the moment, but if you want to stop people from purchasing it or purchasing the wrong ingredients, then legalizing it and taxing it is the only way that we can fix this problem. It would mean that we can control what ingredients go into ecstasy, and we can also tax the fact that someone wants to buy some ecstasy because alcohol might be too expensive for them to get absolutely plastered. And you know what? While we're at it, we can use that taxes on hospitalization, because maybe that person has a heart condition and ecstasy or cocaine raises their heart rate too much and they need to be hospitalized. Fentanyl, I'm not quite sure what this is. In Australia between 2000 and 2011, 136 fentanyl-related deaths were recorded. 54% had a history of injecting drug use, and 95 had injected fentanyl at the time of death. Deaths were primarily among Australians aged under 47 years. Only 0.9% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used GHB one or more times in their life. 9.4% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used hallucinogens one or more times in their life. 1.3% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used hallucinogens in the previous 12 months. Again, one of those drugs that you really want to make sure you're getting something good, because if you're getting mushrooms and it's mixed with something, doesn't sound like a fun time. Then there's also all these other drugs that people are buying because of the fact that they think they're getting MDMA, or they think they're getting mushrooms, or they think they're getting a good deal, and they end up with flakka or crocodile or God knows what. The amount of problems that we could cut out by just legalizing all drugs with certain restrictions would be incredible. Let me continue, because the next one is heroin. Only 1.2% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used heroin one or more times in their life, and 0.1% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used heroin in the past 12 months rather. This is fantastic. Heroin is incredibly freaking addictive, and it does nothing for your life trajectory, essentially. But I think if we legalize it and have specific safe places for heroin users to go to use the drug and then enjoy the high in a safe space, and then be provided counseling and therapy to deal with the addiction that they most likely have, just putting it out there, we would be helping to bring a lot of people from that heroin addicted lifestyle back into society as a member who is no longer addicted to heroin. That's one that would be very difficult. I know that currently Australia does have a few, I'm not sure how many, needle shops. I don't know what they're called, but places where people can get healthy, sterile needles and dispose of their used needles to prevent the amount of HIV and other diseases like hepatitis that can be spread through poor needle sterilization or sharing. The fact is, people will still find a way to get the drug, and they won't always use those needle places because the drug is illegal, and there is that fear that if you go to one of those places, which are incredibly safe from what I know, which I don't know much, so don't take me as Bible, there is that fear that they will be reported and imprisoned. So that's why I think there should be a legalization with licensing for heroin. Inhalants. So this could really be, from what I know, anything that you inhale. 3.8% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used inhalants one or more times in their life. Thankfully, only 0.8% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used it in the last 12 months. So the next drug is kava, which looks to be an Aboriginal treatment of sorts in rural areas. I'm not entirely educated on kava specifically. In 2002, 3.4% of Australian Aboriginals aged 15 years and over living in non-remote areas used kava. Again, I'm not educated on what kava is, but that is the statistic for that one. Next we have ketamine. 1.7% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used ketamine one or more times in their life. Thankfully, only 0.3% have used it in the last 12 months. Next we have methamphetamine, including ice, that delightful drug that isn't addictive at all. 7% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used meth or amphetamines one or more times in their life. 2.1% of Australians aged 14 years and over have used meth or amphetamines in the last 12 months, and of these people, half of them reported crystal or ice as the main form of the drug used. Those are not healthy statistics. And again, cooked in a bathtub by some meth lord, God knows where, with what agenda. You don't know what goes into these things, and if it was legal, then we would, and again, would be able to go to a place that is a safe haven for meth users and be provided all of the health services and the therapy necessary to move on from this addiction. So guys, there you have it. Those are the statistics I was able to find on drug usage in general. The link for that will be below because I personally cannot find a date on that report, but obviously we can see that criminalizing drugs is not working. Obviously a lot of the more expensive drugs and a lot of the more hard drugs are less enticing and popular, but that doesn't mean to say that them being legal would lead to them being more popular. What I will say is that if this were to be done, we would need to have accurate drug and alcohol education in all schools, and we need to make sure that there are services provided for people who are using drugs to ensure the safe usage of drugs. I do not condone breaking the law, but even if this was legal, I do not condone the abuse of drugs, regardless of whether that is alcohol, marijuana, or whatever it may be. Marijuana doesn't seem to have too many deaths associated with it, but alcohol certainly does, as we know, and is very expensive for humans to purchase as well as for the government to provide those services of rehabilitation and hospitalization. There's also the alcohol-related violence, which is a massive expense for the government at the moment, and all of the problems that are going on with that. There are lockout laws because they know that alcohol is causing problems in our societies. I don't think they're working. Again, I think alcohol is one of those things you don't want to piss off a drunk person, and kicking them out of a bar and telling them no more alcohol will piss them off. I think that education is the biggest solution to this problem, and legalization would certainly help because we can ensure that people aren't getting messy drugs that they're not intending to purchase. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion. Please let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, because it is an interesting topic. I know a lot of people think that the legalization of heroin or crystal meth will entice more people to use it because if it's legal, it's got to be safe. But I think that if we educate people on the actual reality of what using those drugs is, including conversations with people who have had addictions, images of people who have suffered from the side effects of these drugs, and then saying, look, it's legal, but only because it is to stop people from getting into these situations, because it's not good for you. A lot of the prescription drugs that are currently legal, again, not good for you. You can still get them. Just because you can get something and it's legal doesn't mean it's good for you. My father is currently prescribed a medication called Dexamphetamine, which is used for ADHD clients. He has to have a psychiatrist write the script by hand, and it has to be, when you first get prescribed that drug, you need to be given legal verification, and it takes a long time for the government and for the health services to then confirm that one, you need the drug, and two, you will take it responsibly. You can only use the script at one pharmacist, so you place your script at the pharmacist and you cannot take it with you because that is a drug that is known to cause health concerns. That pharmacist has to ensure that you are coming in on the right date, so you're not taking more than your prescribed dose. There are a lot of regulations surrounding the use of Dexamphetamine, a legally prescribed medication. What's to say we can't do this for drugs that are currently illegal? And that's what I want to end on today. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys in the comments, and you will see me tomorrow when I upload a Q&A. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe. I hope you liked this video, and that's all. Okay, bye.